Hi, I'm Elizabeth Garber, and I work behind the scenes with the Digital Identity Advancement Foundation, running our Vittorio Bertocci Award and our Kim Cameron Awards. I am here with Erick Domingues, who works with Radium, and he was a 2024?
Four. Yeah, that's correct.
2024
2024.
winner of the Vittorio Bertocci Award. And he has since gone on to do many amazing things, some of which include speaking, but uh, uh, yeah, your career has taken off, I think. So, Erick, why don't you introduce yourself? What do you do? And then I'm going to ask you a few questions about your award and how it fits into your life.
Great, great. Thank you, Elizabeth, for the opportunity to talk here at this interview. It's always great to talk about standards. It's always great to talk about my path with standards, which I don't think I originally planned to work with standards, but I don't think anybody really plans to work with standards once they
It's,
leave the university.
it's not something you do as a kid, write down, I'm going to
No,
be a
yeah.
standards developer.
I wanted to be a scientist, and then at university, for some reason, I decided to be a consultant, so create pretty PowerPoint slides for executives. But
Nice.
I then found creating slides was not that interesting for me. I mean, we're not creating really something concrete, just making recommendations. I really wanted to create something, and that's what led me to join Radian. And with Radian, that's how I started working with standards. So Radian is responsible for helping regulators and banking associations to implement open finance on the countries. And when I joined Radian, I joined as a PMO consultant, but I started looking at standards there. Like when you're discussing, let's say, let's implement open finance in a country, in my case, Brazil, there's no way to get to ignore the fact that we're in the end getting the banks to implement a specific standard. In that case, what was FAPI. And so at start, it was just, Erick, you need to get, I don't know, the experts to do something. But in order for me to help the experts to do something, I had to also understand what was this something. And this something was writing the security standards for the ecosystem. And I
So all
started
this
getting,
made you had to be a leading expert in FAPI.
yeah, that's it. That's it. So at the beginning, it was just small. I had to ask a few questions from the real experts, so Ralph Bragg, Jonathan Heenan. I had a lot of interactions with Mike Mayfield as well. Uh, Danny, sorry, it's Dima as well.
Dima
Dima Potnikov.
Postnikov, yep.
Yeah, they are all.
He's a
I was
heavy
there.
hitter in the FAPI world.
Yeah, that's it. So I had at the beginning, I was just I need to ask them questions to then clarify a specific point for the Brazilians that were working creating the standards. But given I was the one asking questions to them, and then sending those answers back to the Brazilians. Well, then I had to understand in a way what is going on, and from there I just started getting more and more interest on standards. And fast forward 4 years, I'm here, still at Radian, but now I think instead of doing just PMO, now I am the person who goes to a central bank and say, "Let me help you implement open finance." Let even do something broader than that. So my latest project is Project Aperta, which we're doing with the Bank of International Settlements, which is the objective is to connect different open finance standards. So given I do understand how those ecosystems work, now we need to create a way to bridge uh,
Right.
them. So and now I'm writing those standards. So it's great.
Well,
It's been
that's
a great journey so
fantastic.
far. Hmm.
You're realizing a lot of the thought leadership and the vision of a lot of people of the last many years, bridging these worlds of open finance across the planet. So that's really cool work that you're involved in. Um, okay, so let's go back a couple ticks.
Sure.
Because a few years ago, you applied for the Vittorio Bertocci Award at the Digital Identity Advancement Foundation.
Hmm.
How did you find out about that award, and why did you decide to apply?
Great. That was, I think, on the beginning of 2024, the
Hmm.
beginning of last year. And I happen to follow many members of the Open ID Foundation. And those same members, they did share this about the award on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
And I happen to have heard about Victoria before because he did record a few podcasts. I remember people
he
talking
sure
about
did.
his
Hmm.
nice hair and how he had an amazing personality. So he was someone that was able to get everybody's attention, not because only because of his amazing hair, but also because he was a very nice person to speak with and someone very eager to explain things for people who didn't understand it, which was in a way my case.
Yeah.
So, well, got to know about the award. I I look at the ad for the award, the details for the award, and it mentioned like, oh, someone that's just new at the digital identity field and would like to further develop himself on this field. And to me, that was exactly my case. So I was recently joined this field. I really like identity, and I don't see a reason for why not to
Yeah.
involve myself further into that. Really, I think at the beginning I was just looking at specific radiant problems, but really I have this expectation to look beyond that. So if you're looking at the standards, the same standards that you can use to do open finance, you can also do in a way to do digital identity, digital ID in this case. You can do
There's a good
uh,
open health ecosystem in
open health.
Norway. Mhm.
So many things, so many things. And so I think one of the proposals or one of the objectives of the award was to get whoever was awarded, so in that case myself, to a conference to talk about standards and to also understand all the type of standards. And my first conference in this case, the IIW, the Internet Identity Workshop, number I think 38, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken.
It was 38
Yeah,
yeah.
it's an amazing conference to do that because you just get to know so many people. You just get to know about so many topics, and you have introductory topics and very uh detailed technical topics. So for a beginner, for example, I didn't know a thing about this. I didn't know very little about how the Europeans were doing the digital ID scheme, uh, and even all the very interesting topics like how people behave on the internet, for example. Because I
Mhm.
mean, so that. But anyway, at that conference, I could see that there's a lot of things beyond FAPI or OAuth, which were my focus, and
So you went to IIW. Let's double click on that for a second. Um, what so you learned about DIDs. Did you meet anybody there that you're still collaborating with? Did you get involved in any projects? Is there anything from that first experience at IIW that you took with you?
yes, I would say I didn't move. Did is it was getting nice to know about it,
Yeah.
but I would say from that conference, the main points to me were still very close to OAuth or OpenID Connect in this case. So I would say the two things that I wanted, I took from that conference that I continued to work on was OpenID Connect Federation,
Mm.
which where I met. I'm not super good with names. I had Giuseppe, so I still speak with Giuseppe to this day, and I also had
DeMarco. Yeah.
Giuseppe De Marco and uh,
Mike
M-
Jones?
Mike Jones. Yeah, I think about horses, and I think about him because I know he rides horses, and
He
I
does
used
ride
to.
horses, and he's
Yeah, that's
famous.
it.
He's
Yeah,
also
that's
one of the
it.
DIAF judges.
Great. So yeah, so though for OpenID from the OpenID Connect Federation is still something that I'm quite interested on doing, and I still look at the new standards. We're trying to implement a federation on new ecosystems. So getting to know those people directly at the conference simply helps me not only clarify questions that I might have, but also understands how they come from their business needs and draft that into standards.
Mhm.
I think I'm more of a, on my side, I'm more of an implementer. So they create the standards, I just have to understand and implement. But creating the standards is another thing. And talking with them, it just gets this understanding of, oh, that's how you create standards.
Yeah.
And that's something that I'm
You're not
looking
just an
into
implementer though,
collaboration.
I think at Radium. I think Radium plays a really important role in creating momentum for a standard and creating ecosystems with lots of implementers, right?
That's it. That's it.
Uh,
It's an implement. I would say I'm a, how can I say it? I'm not just an implementer, but in a way, the standards are there. So 95% of the standard is set already. What I just need to do is look at very specific business needs and say, oh, let's say FAPI, it covers everything but that. So let's do a small change there.
yeah.
Uh, Sometimes I get the ideas on my own, but most of the times, given the industry is so broad and people are so helpful, I
Mm.
also send them a message and ask them questions.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really useful to have that whole network of people,
Hmm.
June, behind you. So I'm glad that that's something that we helped curate for you at IIW and as part of the Vittorio Bertocci Award. Um, okay, so moving ahead, maybe 6 months, a year. It's a year later, I guess. You went to the European Identity and Cloud Conference and you actually spoke. I don't know. It sounds like you do a lot of speaking engagements now. But do you want to tell us about that talk that you gave? Because that was you were one
That's
of our featured former DIF winners takes the stage at EIC. Tell us a little bit about what you brought.
great. No, that was a great experience. So I did have an opportunity to talk in all the stages, but I don't think, I think the European Identity, uh, EIC, European Identity Conference,
EIC.
yes.
Yep. Mhm.
The EIC one is a different one because you had more technical people on there. I think
Mhm.
most of the times when I'm talking on stages, nobody understands. Like a regulator wants to implement open finance, nobody understands anything. So there's nobody there to challenge me
You can just
most of
wave
the
your
time.
hands.
That's it. That they are eager to learn anything that they can use, but usually you don't have many experts there because otherwise they wouldn't be calling rating or
Yeah.
experts to talk. At the UIC, I think it's different. So you had to prepare something that's really meaningful,
Mhm.
and that made sense to whoever was watching. So I think that was different. And for still the topic that I choose to speak about is still a topic that I'm very comfortable with, which was the implementation of open finance in Brazil. So there we tried to look at. I think a lot of people know about what the UK did in Europe, but in Europe, at least, nobody pays a lot of attention to Brazil. So what I wanted to pinpoint there was what made Brazil. That's a very bold statement, but what made Brazil bigger than the UK? So how did we learn of the UK?
Well, Brazil is quite literally bigger than the UK. It's it's not too bold a statement, but
I
continue.
know, but some people say, "Oh, yeah." There are some people that don't agree 100% with me. Mainly, if you look at folks at the British government,
So what does
the
make Brazil bigger than the UK other than
if you
its
think, I think
geography?
yeah, but I would say adoption there in
Bigger.
proportional terms is larger. So I have
Mhm.
in Brazil, I have around 30% of the population has used open finance so far. So we have that, and also our products, our scope it goes beyond just what the UK has implemented. I think UK has focused on doing data sharing, but there's so much potential beyond just simple data sharing. Uh, that we are just looking at. For example, we do credit portability in Brazil. Credit
Credit
portability,
portfolio. Okay.
yeah. So given you have shared your data about your loans, why can't you simply use this data to compare with other offers and then use Open Finance to simply switch loans? That's really
Mhm.
something that brings a lot of value to the customers. Another example here is with payments. So you do have some payment rails or some payment methods used in UK, but in Brazil we just implemented contactless payment using Open
Mhm.
Finance, which is similar or exactly the same experience for a customer as using credit card. And what we try to do there is use exactly provide the same experience to the user in order to make them switch from credit cards, which has a higher fee and lower control for the user, towards contactless Pix. Those are two things: credit portability and contactless payments is something that we don't have in the UK, and it was something that was created in Brazil. A
How is it different from just using an Apple Wallet with any credit card on it?
If you do open finance payments, you don't pay fees
No
to
fees.
Visa and Mastercard.
Okay.
So if you look at the news recently, Trump was not very happy with Brazil because of what we're doing in terms of payments, because we're reducing in a way the market share for Visa and Mastercard. He was labeling Pix as anti-competitive. But how can it be anti-competitive if there's no cost to the end user? And really, with open finance, we're just removing intermediaries there,
Mhm.
and I think you also give more control to the user. So let's give an example for Apple Pay. If you lose your credit card, of or if you lose your phone with Apple Pay, someone can do a transaction with any limit there.
Mhm.
If you're using Open Finance, you're able to set different limits for different
Limit.
types of transactions. So, and it's easier for you to revoke an access without having to revoke your card because there's no such thing as a card. So, for example, oh, I authorized this Apple Pay to be used on this phone. Well, I can not Apple Pay in this case, but contactless Pix to be used on that phone. I can revoke on my banking app. If you lost your card, well, you have to create a new card. It's not simply revoking. You have to revoke all the connections you have done previously.
Mm,
So I think it's all flexibility for the customer and added security with, or while also removing intermediaries, which reduce costs for the customer.
yeah, yeah, that makes for a more competitive ecosystem overall. Um, any other points that you raised in your talk?
I would say our main point was really around what made it, how did you make it bigger
How did
rather
you make
than
it
why it's
big? How did
bigger?
you? Yeah, okay. And how
And I
did
would
you make it big?
say, I think the main thing we have done, two things I think we have done very well in Brazil. One is around, it's a much more collaborative ecosystem.
Hmm.
It was very shocking for the guys in the UK how collaborative the Brazilians were. For example, whenever we had a problem with the standards or we needed to agree something, what the Brazilians do is they put everybody inside a WhatsApp group from all the banks and they call a Teams meeting with everybody from all the banks and they agree between themselves.
Wow.
In the UK,
In a
that's
WhatsApp
impossible.
group?
Yeah, something like that happens very often. Like
Wow.
culturally, there is no. You don't need call the lawyers. The lawyers need to get a lot of paperwork done in order for the banks to be able to talk. The regulator must be on the call. That doesn't happen in Brazil, so it's much easier for us to agree something collectively and go after a common goal.
Mm,
And that's, I think, innovation was able to happen because of that. Like the fintechs came up with the contactless Pix proposal, for example, and it was much easier for them to validate and agree that with the large banks. And UK would have the CMA9 in an example. It was much easier for the fintechs to validate with the large banks and then agree collectively on a proposal. I'd like to mention about Brazil as well, which was the exhaustive testing and monitoring we did in the ecosystem. So that
mhm,
was a lesson learned with the UK. So in the UK, there are some there are some tests that are executed against the institutions, but it's not as exhaustive as in Brazil. And so in Brazil, in addition to doing, for example, the tests that we do in the UK, which are mainly focused on the sandbox environment or UAT environment, we also do production tests. So every bank in Brazil is tested on a weekly basis to make sure that their APIs are working. And
mhm.
this is
Wow.
important because whenever you have a TPP that's connecting to the banks, they can be sure that this bank is working in not only in sandbox, which is easy to prove, but also in
Absolutely.
production.
Yep. I had an open banking startup in the US, and I can't tell you how often those APIs were not working
And
or
how
were
do
not
you prove they're not working? That's also a challenge for the fintech,
working.
right? So as a fintech, you create your entire business proposition based on the fact that they are working. You connect to that, they are not working as expected. What do you do? You
Mhm.
raise a support ticket of this, I don't know, in the UK, in the US, with the CFPB. Well, how?
What's that? What's that these days?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, that's it. Yeah, yeah. But I'd say even in the UK, complaint if you don't have some structured way to enforce that banks are compliant and to prove that they are not compliant, it just makes the life of the fintechs easier
hmm.
harder. Sorry, it makes it much harder for them.
So that must have been a really interesting session. I think you brought along one of your partners from Open Finance Brazil.
She was key on that presentation and also key on implementing the parts of the tests.
Mhm.
So I'm talking about Fabiane Vieira. It's a Brazilian name. Fabiane, I think in English. But she was responsible for working together with us. So she was a member of the Open Finance structure, and she was responsible for implementing those tests with the banks. As in, defined how we're going to roll out those tests to the banks and making sure they were ready to test whenever the tests were ready. So while I was looking more at the tech side where I need to get the test ready, she was looking at how we make sure the banks are running those tests. And if
Awesome.
they fail, how we make sure the central bank is aware that they are failing so the stick can be used.
Okay. So, I mean, it was great to have both of you on stage, um, and to see that collaboration in action, I think.
It's great. It was great. Also getting to know Berlin, which is very different from Brazil, much more structured.
Oberlin. Yes, yes. Um, anything else you took away from that event?
Okay, I'll say from my main objective at the UIC was understanding more how the European wallet scheme was digital ID and wallet scheme was progressing.
Mhm.
I think here I mainly look at as a learning for Brazil. So Brazil, we don't have an ID, or even if you look at Mercosur, so the South American countries, we don't have a structured ID system.
Right.
You just people take your ID based on their face value, and sometimes you can just use a fake ID. And many times people use fake IDs here in Brazil. So having something similar to that in Brazil would be amazing. And so I was also trying to learn more about that in order to try to get the information and talk with the representatives here in Brazil from the I don't recall exactly the name of the institutions.
The regulators
It's a
there.
yeah, it's the regulatory body that's responsible for that. I think sometimes Brazil is a very innovative country, but many times we forget to take the experiences from other countries
Mhm.
and use them uh, as if they were our own. I mean, why? With standards, there's no reason to reuse something that exists. I mean, the worst thing that you can do on the standards is just try to create a new standard if there's already a standard that works. So that's I think a learning that I had from working those last 4 years with standards. That
It is really wonderful when you can help connect the dots and enable whether it's one country or a business to learn from the experiences of others around the world and hopefully find like culturally appropriate ways to apply those things and solve similar or this
definitely,
harmonious problems.
definitely.
Hopefully. Um,
I would just hope it was as easy. I think the standard part tends to be the easiest part
mhm.
usually. The hardest part is the politics beyond implementing something, or yeah, and getting everybody in the room to agree that they want to do the same thing.
Getting everybody in the room is often a
Yeah.
critical problems. Um, okay. So we've talked about your application to the Vittorio Bertocci
Mhm.
Award, found out why you decided to apply. We talked about your experience at IAW, and we talked about your experience then as a speaker at the European Identity and Cloud Conference. I think now is probably the right time to say, what would you advise somebody who is thinking about applying to either the Kim Cameron Award, which is for new entrants into the digital identity space, or to someone thinking of applying to the Vittorio Bertocci Award, which is more about, um, emerging or established talent who's focused specifically on standards development. What would you say to someone thinking about applying? Is it worth it?
It's definitely worth it. My recommendation is take your time to create a good presentation, a good letter, explaining your experience and why it matters for you, because it's definitely worth applying for this award. I think it not only allows you to go to very interesting conferences, but you go there with support from the DIF, DIAF, DIF,
Diane?
DIF. Yeah, you go with support from DIF, and I think that was very important for myself because you sometimes you don't know anybody at those conferences, and having someone there to introduce you, help you, guide you,
Mhm.
uh, is very important. Like there are not many young people, unfortunately, and we did discuss about that at the IAW, Elizabeth. So how to get young people to get interested about standards. So
That's true.
there
We
are not a
did.
lot of young people there. So having this support from people who are already used with standards to connect with the right people to understand where to go exactly is invaluable. And I
Mhm.
think that's something. In addition to a sponsoring to go to the conferences that the awards provide. So I'm
Yeah,
super
we
happy
always
with
try
that.
and make sure you have a buddy on the ground. And, if there's a dinner, we'll invite you along to it. If there's other social events, we make sure that you know that those things are going on. So you make your connections both at the conference and after hours.
And not only that, also, I remember talking with you about, oh, I really want to understand about this topic. And you said, oh, but do you reckon this person is the
That's
super
right.
duper expert about this topic? Come over. I'm gonna make you a call with talk with him.
That's
So
true.
those connections are valuable.
Good. Well, I'm glad that we were able to deliver that for you. Anything else you'd like to leave us with, Eric?
I think that's it. Really, it was a great feel receiving the award. I understand those are big shoes to fill, given how important Vittorio was in the standards board, and I really hope to continue contributing with the standards, with OpenID Connect, OAuth, and all the related standards. Don't know what the future will lead me to, but for now, I really enjoy. I'm trying to enjoy as much the journey as I can and trying to
Yeah.
help wherever it's possible for myself.
And we're really grateful that you joined the community. I knew Vittorio, and I know that he would be absolutely thrilled that you're participating in some of the same standards groups that he participated in and contributed to. And I think you two would have gotten along very well.
Amazing, amazing.
But so we're grateful to have you in the community here, the DIAF community. And I know that the Open ID Foundation, as a sponsor of DIAF, is really delighted to have you a member of their community as well. So thank you. We can't wait to see what you go on and do, and all the ways in which you make Brazil bigger than the UK.
That's it. That's the objective. Nah, we're already bigger.
We love the
Okay,
UK. We love the UK.
I love. I really like the UK, and they were important, but now it's our time to become protagonists. Okay,
Good job, Brazil.